Welcome back to Growth Interrupted. This is the podcast where we explore the shifts, tensions, and technology reshaping modern commerce and marketing. Today, we're talking about something that sits underneath almost every e-commerce experience, but probably doesn't get discussed enough outside specialist circles: product data. And specifically, what happens to product discovery, visibility, and growth as commerce becomes increasingly AI-driven. Joining me today is Marcel Hollabach, co-founder and CIO at ProductsUp. Marcel has been building in e-commerce and digital technology for nearly 2 decades, and from early video streaming platforms and native advertising ventures through to building ProductsUp into one of the leading enterprise product feed management and syndication platforms globally. ProductsUp powers commerce connectivity across more than 2,500 channels, from search, social, through marketplaces, retail media, and increasingly AI-driven interfaces and LLM environments. And of course, from a Correlytics perspective, this is a really relevant conversation for us because of our special partnership with ProductsUp across shared clients and commerce initiatives, and product data consistently sits at the center of performance across search, shopping, marketplaces, retail media, increasingly AI-driven discovery as well. So, Marcel, with that intro, it's really great to have you on the show, and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great intro.
Thank you. So, let's dive into the first section of what is agentic commerce. So, there's a phrase that's coming up more and more right now, which is agentic commerce. Depending on who you ask, is either the next big shift in e-commerce or still mostly hype. When you hear that phrase, what does it actually mean to you in practical terms?
Good question. There's definitely a fair amount of FOMO out there in the market around agentic commerce. Everybody is wrapping their head around and trying to understand what that actually is. For me, it's basically involving some sort of intelligence into the buying process, right? That is not human.
Right.
I think the closest thing to a human intelligence that we have right now is everything that happens around large language models, what we see with Gemini, what we see with Perplexity, what we see with OpenAI, and those user experiences are a lot around AI guiding the consumer through their discovery, their research, and then ideally also their checkout experience with things like agentic checkout. But agentic commerce for me is really about interacting with a digital intelligence on the whole experience around discovery and shopping.
Right. So, how much of this is already happening versus where we think things are heading, in your opinion?
I think it's a lot of these things are already happening across the market, and they have been happening for quite a while already. Right. So OpenAI is on everybody's mind since they launched 2022, but there have been some sort of intelligent chatbots and these things before that you find on websites of e-commerce merchants across the industries, from retail to travel and so on, that guide the user or used to guide the users through discovery and checkout. And I think what happened in 2022, these things just got smarter, basically, right? So the infrastructure has been in place for quite a while already, and now there's a next level of intelligence, basically underlying, that makes those experience even better. And when we look at basically where consumers find this today, I think the dominant platforms a consumer would interact with is the Google ecosystem, which for me still is the strongest one out there. You have Gemini, you have AI mode, which are the AI summary results that you see when you do an organic search. And then on the other side, you have quite some market share with OpenAI and ChatGPT. Though I have to mention, a lot of the winning in agentic commerce actually for me today means winning Google, still means winning Google, right? If you figure out how to position yourself there, inorganic, but also inorganic with paid search and so on, this ultimately has spillover effects into the other platform ecosystems like Meta and OpenAI and so on. And we just recently discovered that For example, a lot of the product results that you see in a ChatGPT result today is actually crawled from Google Shopping. Yeah? So I'd say 2026 in May, right, when we are recording this now, winning Google still means winning the rest of the ecosystem. But OpenAI is catching up for sure. And there's also initiatives around agentic commerce at Meta that we're seeing. So it's exciting time to be in marketing.
That I think is absolutely correct. I think one time I read a headline when ChatGPT announced ads, or even earlier than that, something like RFP search, welcome to the new era of Gen AI. And I'm just like, no, they just coexist and they co-evolve. They don't kill each other. And the thing is, the more traffic that ChatGPT has, the more traffic Google has as well. So I completely agree with that. I think uh, prepping your product data for both platforms is completely vital, or at least you also have to have the foundation for Google ready in order for all of the LLMs out there pull data from actual Google, right, to be as visible as
Totally.
possible.
Totally.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think looking at the customers that we support and the merchants and brands and so on that we work with, typically the requirements that Google has are the most sophisticated.
Right.
So that's what I mean. When you win Google, when you figure out how to optimize for Google, it typically has spillover effects. So for the first time, I would say, since I'm in the industry with feed management, we see there is some innovation coming out of OpenAI. So what do I mean is when we're working also with Meta or TikTok, for example, right? The catalog specification looks quite similar typically to the one of Google Shopping, or at least you could see they are aligning a little bit with it, which makes sense, right? Because as a platform, you want quick adoption, right? And you want to basically benefit from the infrastructure that is already in place. When you look at the catalog specification from OpenAI, you find actually new stuff, right, that we haven't seen so far with other ecosystems. Things like ratings and reviews or Q&A content or so on, which makes sense when you think about it, right? Like Q&A, a chat, that's exactly how the chat interacts with the consumer. You ask a question, chat provides an answer and so on. So it makes sense to also inquire for that data. So I'd say for the first time in a long time, there's actually some movement and there's new stuff being added. But also Google is not sleeping. Yeah? So we know that and Google, what's public, what they have announced so far is at NRF in January that they are going to introduce new attributes as well. And they are with a couple of merchants in the US right now testing up to 50 new attributes. And some of those new attributes, I think, will, during the next couple of months, will also make it into the product feed. So, and all of that basically is feeding the large language model, the answer engine, right, to be a better coach, sales rep, however you want to call it, to improve the experience.
I see. So speaking of attributes, do you think from hunch, which attributes or which parts of the feed suddenly become more important in AI-led environments, you think?
So in general, the more the merrier. I think
Okay.
that's the baseline, right? So there's a lot of merchants, unfortunately, that stop with the required fields just to get it up and running, so to say. But you can create a lot more visibility and impressions and so on if you keep adding, or if you add also the other attributes that Google Meta and so on lets you provide. When we look at agentic commerce, I think the shift that we're observing as consumers are going from a keyword search to goal-based shopping. So that's how I would describe it. And what does that mean? A keyword search would mean I need a black smoking, for example. So I'm searching, I'm going to Google, I'm searching for the black smoking. While the goal-based shopping approach would be, I'm going to Gemini and I'm saying, dear Mr. Gemini, I'm invited to a black tie event on Saturday night in New York. What shall I wear? Right. So the Gemini results would then probably figure out, a black tie event is rather formal, right? So men are advised to wear a tuxedo, like smoking, something like this, right? And what that means is that this information that a tuxedo is suited for a black tie event should be somewhere in the set of the attributes from the product, right? So it could be something like a theme attribute. Google, for example, also provides something like product highlights. It's not ideal, but it could also live there to some extent, right? So as a highlight saying, okay, this product is perfectly suited for a black tie event or something like this. Different example would be, I'm not searching for a Mars chocolate bar anymore, but I'm writing Saturday noon, I'm having 12 kids over for a kid's birthday party. What do I need? Right. So all of a sudden, the chocolate bar is not just like a food product anymore, but actually it relates to a theme or a topic, which could be a birthday party. That's how merchants should think about their product information going forward.
Right.
And what kind of info they put and attach to it.
It sounds like, from what you have described, it sounds like we have to be, or at least brands have to be prepared for people who already know exactly what they want. So they search for them, right? If they need a tuxedo, they search for the tuxedo. But if they really don't know what they want or need, they would need an AI agent to help them with it. So your product feed also has to be prepared for people who don't necessarily know exactly what they are looking for, right?
Yeah. Another way, you're completely right. Another way of how we put this sometimes is, I keep saying your product feed becomes your sales pitch.
Right.
And why is that? For all the reasons that you just said. It's like the way how consumers are shopping is changing, and the sales process, right, isn't necessarily only there for the end result that someone buys something, but a good sales process also guides a shopper, a consumer, a buyer through the decision stage, right? And to evaluate what's the right product for me and so on. Also, that is part of the sales process. And historically, the sales process happened more, I would say, on the merchant website, right? Someone is searching for a product, lands on the PDP, the product detail page of a product, and then continues the discovery journey there. And I think this, in the mid to longer term, is now changing because the discovery is actually happening within a chat environment, within an agent-led environment, and consumers that have made a purchase decision or have made the decision that they're interested in a certain product, they're actually already pre-sold by the agent, right? So the moment they land on your PDP, they're a lot more likely to convert and to buy than in a previous funnel. And I think that's very interesting, and it's very important to understand because this really means your catalog, the data that you send to Gemini, to OpenAI, will define how successful that agent is in selling your product to the consumer.
Right.
And this is really, it's a bit of a change.
It is, because, like, you have a set of best practices about how you write your product descriptions and also your headlines, just to get your SEO, at least, like, just to win on Google Shopping first. And now you also have to prepare for another set of, let's say, different types of behavior, and that
Right.
is not really out there.
Right.
With that, I also wanted to ask you, what is one thing that brands think matters here that actually doesn't?
Oh, what matters, what doesn't? That's a good one. It's hard for me to pinpoint basically to one thing because, as I said earlier, I think the more the merrier.
Right.
Actually, it's in online marketing and in SEO and SEM. Typically, the more is better. Ensuring the targeting stays sharp, right? So I mean, there oftentimes spray and pray is not the better approach.
Right.
So when it comes to targeting, I would say there you have to be very precise in who you want to basically acquire and why. But apart from that, when it comes to your product detail page, the more content you have, the more engaging the content is, the better it is typically, right? So this will drive your organic results. In the product feed, as I said, the richer it is, the better Gemini and OpenAI will be to sell your product and so on, right? So
So in that case, do you think commerce becomes even more fragmented from here, or eventually would consolidates again if everybody can start preparing their feed uh, and preparing for different types of customers, different types of behavior?
Yeah, I probably would have answered that question different in every decade.
That is true.
But from what I'm seeing is, and I'm my starting point, let's put it that way, is somewhere like 2005. You mentioned it in the intro when I started with native advertising and video advertising. There, the advertising landscape was really fragmented with a lot of ad networks and so on. I would say during the years this has already consolidated, right? So you have a couple of big programmatic advertising networks left, and then you have the big platforms, obviously, like Google Meta and so on. But also then again, every once in a while there's new platforms emerging, right? So I mean, you at Crealytics and also at ProductsUp, we have seen after Meta, we have seen Pinterest emerge, then have them launch their own ad platform. Then we saw TikTok emerge, having them launch their own ad platform. I just myself, like a couple of days ago, got first-hand access on the OpenAI Ads Manager, right, for the ads platform. I will play around with it now for our own customer acquisition. So here's a new platform again, right? So there's parts of the market that consolidates, but then again, there's new players coming up, and maybe even Perplexity at one point eventually launches an ad network, right? And then you have Google is venturing out into multiple products. Google is not just search anymore, right? It's shopping, it's local inventory ads, it's hotel, it's flights, it's price comparison, and now it's Gemini in AI mode, right? So also these the individual platforms become richer in functionality, and we see the same with Meta and Pinterest, right? So Meta, you also have different ad products now. You have video ads, you have local inventory, and then all these things. So I would say I'm not really seeing a big consolidation, but rather every once in a while new platforms entering the marketplace. And staying. As I forgot Snap. Snap also, right, is in the mix, in the
Exactly.
marketing mix of our customers, also around.
So in that case, in prioritization becomes the actual pinpoint for brands because they have to also think about which channels they should prioritize being seen the most, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I see. Okay, so in that case, more like a personal point of view right now, I wanted to ask you, what's something about AI and commerce that you think the industry is overhyping right now? Is there any way to change it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we are having heated debates internally, but also with our customers and also with the partners around the whole topic of agentic checkout, for example.
Right.
Yeah. So if we go back 9 months, you saw probably the announcement that Walmart launched agentic checkout, which means, right, so the agent of ChatGPT recommends a product to you, and then you say, yes, I want to buy it, and you don't buy it from the Walmart website in this example, but you buy it directly from within the agent. So there's um, like a technological integration between the order management of Walmart and the agent. This is moderated by these protocols that OpenAI and Google have launched. Google protocol is called UCP, Universal Commerce Protocol, and OpenAI has launched ACP, Agentic Commerce Protocol. Um, and there's a lot of debate around how useful this checkout piece is. And Walmart actually has sunsetted it again, right? They're still using answer engines, OpenAI, Gemini, and so on to drive discovery for the products. But Walmart reported back that actually the conversion rate and the commercial success was higher when they converted the, let's say, the agent pre-pitched consumers on their own website. And I think a conversation that I'm having quite frequently is, and you see that especially around enterprise-sized merchants, like the big brands, big retailers, they keep pushing back on checkout for the simple fact that for checkout at Google or OpenAI to be successful, the agent from Google would have to drive more cart value for the merchant than the merchant is able to generate when they acquire the consumer on their site and basically drive them through the sales funnel there. And at this point of time, there is no chance the cart value is higher because you can only buy one item, right? So this is changing now in the next couple of months. Google is announcing a cart functionality, so you can put multiple products in the cart, but also this means multiple products can also mean products from multiple merchants, right? So doesn't necessarily mean it's all from the same merchant. So, and I think as long as basically merchants themselves are better in creating cart value than the agents from OpenAI or Gemini, as long as that is true, checkout will have a hard time. So what we in conversation with customers advise and also the feedback we get back is a lot of them are now fully focusing on the discovery piece, meaning making sure that you're present, that you're found, that your products are found, that the agents represent you in the best possible way in order to drive ready to buy consumers, so to say, to their site.
Wow.
And I think when we look at how this whole market in general is developing, OpenAI already scaled back on their efforts for checkout, and they are starting to prioritize advertising, which makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, also like commercially for OpenAI. But I think also the adoption of something like product ads in OpenAI will be a lot quicker than pushing all of the merchants into a full implementation of agentic commerce protocol, for example. Right? And fun fact, in the OpenAI Ads Manager, a friend of mine from the US has already uncovered some hidden attributes and fields basically in the ad manager where you can already see they're preparing for the connectivity with ChatGPT Merchant Center and providing a product feed. So I think it's a matter of a couple of months in the US now until you have something similar like Google Shopping style ads for OpenAI. So long answer to the question, but I think agentic checkout is overhyped. And I think what's probably underestimated is how important the discovery part really is. Because if you don't show up, you've already lost, right?
For sure. I completely agree. And in that case, I want to go one step further, meaning, do you think like in the next 3 to 5 years, let's say that we probably crack the code to be more seen, right? So in that case, in 3 to 5 years, the next challenge would it be bridging the gap between being discovered and then check out agents to actually bring it to a purchase. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that we are now in an era where we are trying to get seen. We want it to be discovered by the consumers. Later on, do we need to be discovered and seen by AI agents if AI agents are also gonna act on our behalf?
Yeah, for sure. There's all sorts of things that I can imagine. I think because you mentioned timeline, a word on that, what we typically see is that innovations take a lot longer until they're fully adopted than we estimate, right? So they're overhyped in the short term and they're underestimated in the long run. And I think a good technological shift that also we both, I think, lived through was the shift from desktop to mobile, right? So I still remember, I don't know if it was 2009 or 2010 when Meta basically announced we're now a mobile first company, right? Everything needs to be smartphone first. And from this 2010 smartphone first announcement to consumers really adopting fully to mobile, I would say this took like 10 years. And I would assume in this whole agentic space, it's very similar. Yeah. So people are so used to going to Google and searching for something with a keyword when they want to buy something or going on an online shop. And this behavior, especially in, let's say, consumer group that is not an early adopter. Like we have to be, right? We have to be early adopters and figure out how all of this works. But there will be a lot of consumers where it will take time, basically, until they change their behavior. And I think also like the platforms cannot really force this, right? So it will take time until Gemini is so ingrained into the behavior of consumers, so it really becomes your shopping coach and your daily go-to digital person that you talk to when you want to learn something, buy something, understand something, organize something, and so on. So, and that's probably, it relates a little bit to your question before. Also, what is one of the misconceptions that that merchants have, brands have, and so on. I believe a lot of them overestimate the timeline. They give too much weight on the timeline, and they try to be quick now, obviously, which makes sense. But it can also be too early. And a good example, I think, is what's happening to these commerce protocols out there. So OpenAI launched Agentic Commerce Protocol last year, and the early adopters started jumping on it, right, and exploring the protocol and so on. And then a few months later, Google, together with Shopify, launched UCP, the Universal Commerce Protocol, which was late to the party, but which seems to be the winning protocol now. From these two, right? More and more partners are basically backing out of ACP and they're switching to UCP. Microsoft was the last one to do that, and now also Amazon joined the UCP Council and is starting to contribute to the protocol. Why am I saying this? Because sometimes being too early also can lead to a lot of sunk cost. Yeah? And I think if you put that into relation with how long it takes consumers to actually change their behavior, I think it's okay sometimes to wait a year and first figure out, for example, what is the winning protocol in the end, and then start building towards it.
I think it sounds like timing. Knowing your timing is quite important. When you're a tech
Sure.
leader in this world, you might think of a good protocol, you might think of a good idea. It doesn't mean that the execution and the adoption is gonna help you.
Yeah, I believe there is, and you always have to weigh the opportunities.
Exactly. Yeah.
I believe, for example, obviously I have to say this now. It's a bit of our marketing as well. But preparing your product information is never a bad idea, right? So you can do that anytime, because even though some of the content might not yet be digestible from, let's say, Google or OpenAI, you can use it anyways on your product detail page on your PDP and increase organic traffic, for example, right? So I think there's a few things that are kind of like evergreens that are always worth putting money and time and brains into, and others are more, relate more to market timing.
Okay, great. Marcel, we're reaching the end, and since this podcast is about growth interrupted, I wanted to ask you some closing questions about the theme of the podcast. So, where do you see growth potentially stalling if brands don't adapt their product data in an AI-driven commerce world?
I think it's even worse. I think if you don't adopt, you don't stall, but you basically decline.
Yeah.
Because it's like in sport. If you are in a boat and you stop putting in energy, you basically go the other way back in a river. In online marketing, it's the same. Like your competition most likely will keep basically investing and improving in that area, and answer engines, and we already can see this, LLMs will favor those who basically put in the work.
I see. And one last question is, if you have to give one advice to brands and agencies running paid media on product data, what would it be?
Yeah, my advice would be to not settle with the status quo.
Okay.
And that means if you're running paid ads, and I know where this comes from, oftentimes it's you want to keep the lights on, basically, right? So you're operating in a way, you're a lot of stress and a lot of work, and you try to basically keep the lights on, while small improvements sometimes can lead to huge results. Yeah? And that can be something easy, like putting, I don't know, a color into a title for Google Shopping. And that all of a sudden increases click-through rate massively, right? Improves your whole campaign KPIs, your return on ad spend improves, and so on. So that's what I mean. I think if you're doing performance marketing, also approach product data and your catalog with a performance marketing mindset and with a testing and improving mindset. Because if everybody's using shopping actions, for example, shopping actions, performance max campaigns, right, and the AI is doing the same bidding and optimization for everyone, what's left for you to differentiate is your catalog, is your data. Right. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do.
Marcel, this was great. Really appreciate you joining. I think this is one of the areas that's becoming more strategic very quickly. And it's going to be fascinating to see how brands adapt over the next few years. So thank you again for joining.
You're welcome.
Thanks for tuning into Growth Interrupted, where growth gets challenged, unpacked, and looked at a little differently every episode. If this one resonated, or you simply enjoyed the AI avatars we created for our guests, drop us a comment or share it with someone in your world. You'll find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Growth Interrupted is proudly brought to you by Crealytics, an award-winning global digital marketing agency. See you next episode.